queens. Thank you for joining me at the King's Table tonight. This is Dr. Kathy James, fondly known as Mama James. Joining me tonight is host coach Kimmy Young, as well as Yvette Buggs and Crystal Cyprian. We have some great guests tonight and a wonderful topic, the shades of color. That's right, we're going there, the shades of color. Let's go. Hey, thank you for joining me tonight. This is Mama James at the King's Table. We are very excited tonight, and we have a great topic and some wonderful guests that is going to share with us some really good information that's needed at this time. First of all, let me disclose that this topic conversation may be uncomfortable for some, and some people might even find this a little bit offensive, but it's a topic that we feel that's important, and we want to talk about it. And just like, in biblical days when Esther was faced with all the many challenges that she had, she too tried to kind of throw it away and tell Mordecai, don't bother me, I'm not interested. But tonight, you got to deal with what you got to deal with. We find ourselves today in our culture, there's a lot of political unrest, there's a lot of racial unrest, and we're uncomfortable. But the only way that we're going to get comfortable is that we start having these difficult conversations. So this topic, we're going to bring the panel members on. I'm going to ask Kimmy and Yvette if they would join me at the table. And let's have a quick thought for just a moment. Hey, Yvette, how was your weekend?
My weekend was wonderful. I was able to get out with girlfriend for a couple of hours. And of course, like every Sunday, I spent the morning and afternoon with my father.
Great. I'm glad. And Kimmy, how about you? How was your weekend?
My weekend was great. I just spent a lot of time cleaning up and kind of getting behind the kids, getting some things done for a nonprofit and for my business. So everything went well this weekend.
Good. Thanks. Thanks for sharing. And everyone, just cleaning up. I didn't clean up this weekend. I pretty much just rested. By the time I get through teaching these two kids all week on Saturday, I just want to lay down and pull the covers over my head. But reality is, here we are again. So we're back. So let me introduce what we're going to talk about tonight. During slavery, African Americans were separated by their color of their skin. And we've all heard the stories that if you were lighter complexion, you worked in the house, and the darker the complexion, you had to go work out in the fields. This was meant to do just that, separate and make one group feel superior and the other inferior. In all actuality, we were all in bondage, regardless to the shade of our skin. So tonight, we're going to discuss the shades of color and explore the solutions to bring some unity within our own culture, within our own community, one with each other. And we want to celebrate the diversity of all of us, regardless to what color we are. So we have a wonderful group of individuals with us tonight. They are very smart, young, educated, and we're going to invite them to the table, and we're going to have them come introduce themselves to you. So let's bring in our guest tonight. So welcome all of you to the King's Table. We are really excited that you are here, and we already have a lot of guests joining in tonight on the show. I almost said kick in like I'm trying to be young like some of you all, but we have a lot of guests joining us this evening. So we welcome each and every one of you. So we're going to have you introduce yourselves to us, and when you finish, you all know that we're talking about the shades of color. So Drew, let's start with you. Tell us your name, your parents, your background, and what you're doing.
Got you. How you doing? My name is Drew Buggs. My mother is Yvette Buggs. I attend Xavier University of Louisiana, the best HBCU around. I have a major in sociology, and a minor in mass communications.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. So why don't we start with Mr. Jalen?
All right. My name is Jalen Trapp. I am attending Howard University. I'm majoring in public relations. My family is basically from Miami, Florida. I guess my cultural background mixes between the South and the Caribbean. I'm currently living in Sacramento, California.
Great. Thank you for joining us. Shayla.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shayla McKnight. I am Right now, attending the University of Washington, getting my master's in social work. I do have my bachelor's in social work as well, with a minor in criminal justice and my AA in psychology. I'm from Sacramento, California, and my family is from Kansas and Oklahoma area.
Great, great. Thank you. And how about Miss Marday?
Hi, everyone. My name is Marday Salmon. I am a sixth grade school teacher at Irving B. West. I have my bachelor's in child development, and I have my master's in teaching. I have 2 kids and a husband. I am biracial. My mother is white, and my dad is Black. I was raised here in Sacramento, California.
Great, thank you. Welcome to the table. And how about Miss Jocelyn?
I'm an environmental scientist with the state of California. I'm a first-generation graduate. My mother is Black. My father is white. I'm one of 3 siblings raised halfway in Northern California in a predominantly white community, then the other half kind of in the city with a Black community.
Thank you, Jocelyn. I love how you said that, splitting up your lives. And that's what this show is all about tonight. I have a funny story I want to share. I thought about it today when I was going over everything. I remember growing up, I'm from Northern California, Chico, California. There's just a very few Blacks there when I was raised there. And my grandmother, my big mama, raised me. She was very light-skinned, even lighter than Jocelyn, I would say. And she always told us she was Indian. So we grew up all of our lives thinking that we had Indian blood in us and we were different than everybody else. I always felt superior. So a couple of years ago, I wanted to prove I was Indian blood. I took the 23andMe. And to my surprise and to my satisfaction, I am straight from Ghana, South Africa. Right from Toronto. That just really tickled me because it's true. We do separate ourselves thinking that we are better than someone else because of what someone has told us and what we believe, but we are all just one people. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. So Yvette, why don't you go ahead and start us out tonight?
Okay, so tonight we are going to start off. The question that comes up a lot is, what is considered dark skin and what is considered light skin? And everyone can answer those questions in different ways. We wanted to talk and start off with this test that we've heard about called the brown paper bag test. And I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's been around since the 20th century, maybe even before that. The brown paper bag test was a form of racial discrimination practiced within the African American community by comparing an individual's skin tone to the color of a brown paper bag. The test was allegedly used as a way to determine whether or not an individual could have certain privileges. Only those with skin color that matched or was lighter than a brown paper bag were allowed admission or membership privileges to certain clubs, certain sororities, fraternities, things that you would, need membership for. Only people that were lighter or the same color as the brown paper bag. So tonight we're going to put ourselves to the test, and we just want to get a feel of and let you know how it feels to not pass the brown paper bag test or to pass the brown paper bag test. So everyone, if you would lift your brown paper bag and put it up to your skin, and so the audience can see. And if the audience is looking now, you all are welcome to send in your chats, your comments. All of us would not have passed the brown paper bag. So if we can go one by one and ask each panel member, do you pass the brown paper bag test? Shayla.
Not at all.
Okay. Josh? Josh, would you?
I passed.
You passed. Okay. How about JP?
I do not.
Okay. Marday?
I do.
And then Drew?
Yes, I do.
Mama James, do you pass the brown paper bag test? You don't? Okay. How about Kimmy?
I do not. I do not pass it. I know my light looks bright, but I don't pass it. No.
Okay, so reality check is back in those days when that test was around and it was being used, some of us would not have been issued privileges that the others would receive, and that sometimes it caused a separation, and it caused us to look at one another, and to some of the envy set in, or jealousy, or hatred, and it's something that I know that came from slavery. I mean, we were brought over, and we were separated based on the color of our skin. I would be in the house, whereas someone else on this panel may have to work in the fields because of the color of their skin. And you can imagine, if you watch me every day, you're out in the hot sun, and you watch me every day in the house where it's cool, and I might get to eat the scraps off the table. You can imagine what happens over a certain amount of time, and then separation kicks in, and that's where you separate the race. So I do have some questions for you all. Let's start with JT. How do you feel? Do you feel that society still treats African Americans differently based on skin tone?
I think there's definitely an element in multiple parts of society that you feel a distinct separation between um, black people based on skin tone, and it doesn't take too much to figure that out. You can go to Twitter and you can still very much see there is a lot of tension between how people feel about light-skinned people versus dark-skinned people, and black representation, and whether or not a black person is a certain color, and whether how much they're accepted or rejected, or yeah, there are definitely a lot of facets, even within just the black community, where you feel a divide between people based on skin tone or racial background, in my opinion.
Okay, that's a good point. Let's go to the other spectrum, and let's ask Drew. Drew, do you feel that society still treats African Americans differently based on the skin tone?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think it's pretty. It's pretty. I mean, it's very noticeable. I don't think it's not hidden. Definitely like in the workforce. What was another? Like sororities and fraternities. Actually, I haven't seen a huge like barrier within the sororities and fraternities, just off of my experience with that I've seen. But I do think it is a barrier.
Okay, and then Josh, coming from a mixed background, how do you feel? Do you see that? How do you feel about that?
I feel like it's obvious that there is. I feel like not only from society outside, but also I think like JT was saying, from inside our own culture, there is a divide. And there's a lot of tension that goes along with that, and unrest. I think within our own culture, within our own neighborhoods, not only from outside, which I think that makes it a little more difficult to deal with personally. That may be based on my racial makeup, and having the experiences from one side versus the other, and feeling some of it from both sides. But as a whole, yeah, I think that the darker your skin tone is, for sure, there's more intimidation, perhaps more fear still. And it's ingrained, in the media and all these other factors or aspects of our lives, but most definitely it's noticeable for sure.
Awesome.
Yvette, can I intervene? I want to ask Josh a question right there. Can you bring her back with me, please? Josh, as you're in a male-dominated career, and as an African-American female scientist, biracial, how do you manage that every day?
Because I have, I guess, experienced these challenges with race and gender for the majority of my life, I feel like I have finally, with God's help and through all these different experiences, found kind of my niche on where I can assert myself as a strong Black woman, but still maintain a professionalism and level of respect for my peers. But I do find myself having to assert myself. My tone of voice and the characteristics that I got from my mother really help, I think, to drive that point home.
Yes.
But yeah, it's there. It's definitely there. But I constantly have to have this meet this bar, this standard of, oh yeah, I know this. I've taken all these chem classes. I know this structure of these molecules and whatnot. And so I have to answer these questions probably more so than my counterparts, my white counterparts. Yeah, it's definitely there. But you know, I think as a Black woman raised by a Black woman, you're strong enough to say, okay, I'm going to overcome this with the education, the mental strength, and all the challenges that I've had kind of prepare you for these types of experiences. So I've been fortunate enough to have a great foundation in that respect.
That's great. I was just wondering. I thought that was interesting. So thank you. Go ahead, Yvette.
Well, the next question. First, I want to say that back when I was young in the workforce, there was this thing called affirmative action. I'm not sure. I'm sure some of you have heard of affirmative action, but where the job force they had to hire a certain percentage of minorities they had to consider a certain amount of minorities for jobs back during those days. And I remember going up for a job that I really wasn't qualified for. And I wasn't the only African-American person, but I was the lighter skinned African-American person. And there were other ones that, they were more qualified for the position. And I actually got the position. And I knew that I wasn't as qualified as those people. So I felt that it had to do with the color of my skin and that, because I was lighter complexion. So I want to ask, I'm going to ask Ashayla, do you feel that lighter complexion African Americans have the upper advantage when it comes to dating or being viewed as pretty or considered for jobs? And the list can go on and on and on.
I would, in my experience, I would kind of have to say yes, and I think social media kind of pushes that. That kind of, the lighter you are, the more beautiful you are. And so I've met men who were like, "Oh, if only you were lighter," like literally. That has been like part of a conversation. They didn't say it like that direct, but that was definitely like something mentioned. And so it kind of makes you look like, okay, well, that's fine. I'm not for you then, but it definitely can kind of stir the pot to how you look at your fellow Black women, especially when it comes to dating and things like that. I personally haven't had that feeling in the workforce, but definitely in kind of social settings.
I love your response, and you can tell that you love the skin that you're in, and that's what we want to teach our young women, younger than you, to love yourself regardless. And I know as growing up as a light-skinned young lady, it was hard for me because I wanted to fit in, with the African American girls. Then I wasn't accepted there, and I wasn't accepted by the white girls, and so I was just kind of in between somewhere, and it seemed like I always had to prove that I was, I was this, Black power girl, because I had to prove myself. And so that was really hard. I want to ask Marday the same question. I know Marday is mixed, but do you feel that lighter complexion African Americans have the upper advantage when it comes to opportunities?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I don't know if I've really experienced it myself because I am of the lighter skin, so I don't know from the other perspective. But I do know that, like Ashayla said, social media plays a huge, huge, huge thing. I mean, even when I was in high school, there was the whole light skinned is in trend that still may be trending. I'm 10 years out of high school, so I don't know if it still is or isn't. But I know that it's something that I've even seen videos where they've interviewed, Black men asking them, well, what kind of women do you like? And it's either white women or light skinned women because they don't want dark skinned women. And so without even knowing them. So I definitely think that it makes a difference as far as where the world perceives you.
That's awesome. I'm going to turn it over to Kimmy, but we do have a comment that I wanted Mama James to address. There's someone that commented, Stacy. She commented that she has tension in her home with being a lighter skin, but her children are brown. what can we say to Stacy about dealing with her two daughters that are brown, and she's light skinned, and she feels the tension inside her home, within her home?
Yeah, that's really sad. And to Stacy, what I would really want to encourage you, and I think we have a couple of people in the panel that can address it as well. But for me, I would say it saddens my heart to know within your own four walls that you feel this type of tension, because I believe that in my home is where I want peace to reside. So I would like to encourage you to go back and sit down and talk and have this conversation with the person that you feel that tension coming from. Because like what Yvette Bug said a few moments ago to Ashayla, you first have to be comfortable in your skin. Before you can make other people comfortable, you have to be in a place where you accept who you are and what you bring to the table. And once you accept what you bring to the table, you allow everybody else to be comfortable. And earlier, before we went on the show, I was telling everyone that this is a no judgment zone. And what we don't want to judge you, but what we do want to do is empower you to go back to the table and tell everyone, it doesn't matter what color we are. And to my little beautiful brown babies, you are beautiful just the way you are. And be honest with them about the types of challenges that they're going to face. I think, Josh, because I know you the most as a family member, can you address that a little bit, knowing that you have nieces and nephews who kind of live in some of that reality today, and how you felt growing up in that environment?
You know, just like one of the other gals said, it's difficult from my perspective to relate, I guess, to those challenges. And it's so funny because just like Yvette was saying, I growing up was like, oh, I want to be so black. I want to date the blackest guy I can find. And I want to have the blackest babies I can have, because there was this sense of I'm not black enough and I'm always being challenged about my blackness. So I'm just going to go in, to the extreme. And so I've never, I guess, heard it from that perspective with the children. But my sisters obviously, have mixed race children, and one has a darker skinned son, and there's a lighter skinned son. And so not necessarily there's tension there, but there are questions that are asked of my sister or my mom, that there's different answers. For the darker son, I'll give you this answer in terms of how to present yourself, how to carry yourself, just based on the conversation you have to have with your sons or with your children that are darker complected. But as far as the tension, in the home, I know jealousy runs rampant, and I had to deal with that. But it's not something that I could have healed. It's something that I would have to talk to this person about. And like Aunt Kathy was saying, you have to speak to them and find out where they're at, so you can encourage and motivate and assure, especially at a young age, the self-esteem that we need to pump into our young girls. It's so necessary right now, because the media is not going to give that affirmation and confirmation to them. So that really comes from us elders. I'm calling myself elder, but who experienced a lot of this, and these babies that are going through this, and they don't see themselves on TV, they don't see themselves on books, they don't see themselves in Disney commercials and whatnot. And so I always try to buy books to my black little nieces, like, oh, you guys are dark skinned, I'm gonna buy you a book about loving your color, and teach them at a young age that it's beautiful. I want it. At some point I was like, man, why can't I tan and get darker? And so any opportunity that I have, I'll tell people, oh, I love your skin, because I do. It's so pretty. So it really hurts my heart too to hear that other people don't feel that way about themselves. So yeah, that's all I really can say.
That's a good point. Yeah. So I was growing up with Jocelyn, right? We're the same age, so we always grew up together. So I know exactly what she means. And as we always hung out together, it was always one of those like, are you my cousin? Are you really my cousin? But it was no doubt for sure. Uncle John, right, was just white, and Aunt Deborah, and even as dark as her brothers and sisters are from my dad's side, is darker. Even Aunt Deborah was on the light scale. So the both of them together made very light colored children, but they're the blackest of the black when we got together. Sure of that. So I'm going to bring in some of our members here for the dark skinned African American I really want to talk to you. So I'm going to take the rest of you off the screen for just a moment because I really want to focus on a couple of questions that I want to dial into with you all. This segues really good into what we were just talking about. So for darker skinned African Americans, how are you in comparison, right? Do you compare yourself to the light skinned relatives, or do you feel less than or superior to those that are lighter that are within your own family? I'm going to go ahead and start off with JT. What do you have to say about that?
I think that's a very loaded question. You know, it's a lot of
Yeah.
different ways that you could approach it. Because I think there are certain things that you feel on a conscious level, and then there are things that you kind of feel a sense on a subconscious level. And I think just growing up in a society that is so directly a product of racism, it's almost impossible to not have some sort of subconscious bias when it comes to race and when it comes to skin tone. Now, and I'm not really sure how you can fix that because, like some people that mentioned earlier, a lot of it has to do with the media and how people are portrayed. So if you grow up seeing that one thing is good and that this is the apex of whatever hierarchy there is, and if you're not this, then you can't be that, then that's going to stay in your subconscious for a while, no matter what you do. But on the other end, there are things that you can do and think consciously in order to fight against these outside forces that are sort of shaping your perception, you know? So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Okay. Well, Shayla, how about for you? Where do you want to chime in there with the relation to relatives and just the stereotypes within and being either less superior or more superior, or what the struggle is?
Yeah, well, I come from a home, my mom is considered light skinned and my dad is dark skinned. And growing up, I always got the, is that your mom? And I'm like, yeah, we look just alike. They're like, no, but is that like she gave birth to you? And it's like, yes. And there will always be people who like make comments like about my mom being like really beautiful. And it's like, okay, is that because she's light skinned or because she's beautiful? Because we have the same exact features. You know, like we literally look the same. And so it was kind of hard growing up because that standard was kind of put there from the beginning. And then when you turn on a show or a movie, if there's a bad guy and he's black, he's dark skinned. Like it's point blank period. That's what it is. And so it's kind of hard to build that self-esteem if you don't have that support system in your family. And luckily I did. But not a lot of darker skinned or brown skinned young women and men out here have that. And so it's very unfortunate.
Yeah, so thank you for both of you for chiming in on that. So for the both of you, and either one of you can raise your hand to answer this, but do you feel that light-skinned African Americans face less racism in society than dark-skinned?
I guess I could start. I think it depends on the circumstances. I think within white society, it is easier to integrate and feel more like um, the white Caucasian people when you look more like them. And if you look, I think, I don't know, when I think about human beings and how simple and ridiculous racism is, I think of it sometimes in very simple terms. And I think, you know, if this person looks like us, then they're a part of our group, you know? So I think the more dramatic the difference is between you and what is the norm, then you're going to have a harder time when in mainstream society. So I would say that light-skinned people within certain contexts do face less racism, in my opinion.
Yeah. How about for you, Shayla? Do you think that people have been, do you think that you personally have been passed over for a job promotion, for an opportunity, for a school venture, for anything that you feel like you were passed over because of the context of your skin color?
Nothing that I can like definitely say, but in like the back of my mind, that always becomes a factor. Like, oh, I bet, you know, someone else got it, and trying not to like throw anything towards that, but you do kind of internalize it. And something JT that hit is kind of the more dramatic the difference is, the easier it is to make you a target. So if you have to question whether someone's Black, then it's like, I don't know. But when you look at me, you clearly know that I'm Black or I'm from some type of African or diaspora descent. So it's just easier to put a target on my back.
Interesting. One thing, I'm going to kind of go off of the notes a little bit here for the questions, but one thing that I'm kind of chiming in on, and I wanted to bring up with both of you, do you see, though, that it's a matter of color or, for instance, I want to put an example out here. JT, like you have dreads, if I'm not mistaken. Ashayla, you have braids. Do you think that your lighter counterparts do the same thing? Is it a cultural thing, or do you think it's a color thing? How does that affect how people might see you?
Should I go first? I guess.
Go ahead.
You got it.
I think it's a bit of both. I think definitely it has a little bit to do with culture and seeing as within America, at least, Black people are not the dominant culture. When you fully embrace something that might be deemed as Black culture, it's almost really a subculture, and people may not understand it. They may not respect it. They may think that it has some sort of negative connotations or denotations to it. But at the same time, I could cut off my dreads. I could, rock my hair very low. I could put on a button-up shirt and some khakis, and there's still going to be people who have their preconceived notions about who I am and how I act and what I'm liable to do. So I would say
absolutely, yeah. I think that's a great response. That's exactly what I was looking for, JT. So thank you for chiming on that. Ashayla, do you want to have anything to say about that before we go back to the group?
No, he said it perfectly.
Great. I think so too. That's great. So we're going to have Dr. Kathy James. You're going to go ahead and go with the next segment for our guest on tonight. You are muted. Give me 1 second.
Let me unmute myself here. So thank you very much. And I'm enjoying all of you. And I'm just sitting back and, you all know I'm going somewhere with the book of Esther, don't you? I think this is a moment for us just to really lift our hands and just really be grateful to God for you people. You are wonderful young people. And you tonight have made my heart just very happy to know that you all are so well versed and that you are woke. If I'm allowed to use that term, you're very much aware of what's going on in your community. So thank you very much for that. And then again, when we are presented the types of challenges that we're faced with tonight, and Esther, again, just kind of threw up her hands and she didn't want to hear it when she was called to the table by Mordecai. And you all are not throwing your hands up. You're facing this head on. So my question, we have a question from a panel member, and from a guest. I'm not quite certain, but I'm going to read it and see if we can make a sense of it. Has anyone on your panel been a prosecutor of the issues they are being faced with today? And I think what the person may be asking, have any of you ever judged or looked at people lighter than you or darker than you and thought differently about them than you are your own self? Like for me, I told you how I was thinking about my own self until I took my test and found out different. So any panel member want to address that? Have you ever looked at someone else and say they think just because they're light, they're all this or they're all that? And to your guest who's asking the question, if I didn't get that right, please write it back over so I can understand it. Anyone?
I'm going to go ahead and go first. So I could honestly say that as with growing up, like with Jocelyn and seeing a lighter skin color, I was always like, oh, I wish I was a little bit lighter. Like the high yellow girls, like they seem to get more because they have the long hair and they have the beautiful eyes and the really soft, subtle skin. And then of course, knowing that, of course, the lighter girls want to be darker. They want to tan. They want to get that tone and that color to them. So that's for me, my experience is I wish I could be a little bit lighter because maybe people would like me more, be accepting more.
Anyone else? Yvette?
If I can chime in, I remember for myself, people just always thought I was stuck up, and I am so far from being stuck up. I was really shy and scared of boys. I married my first boyfriend and I'm still with him, so I wasn't fast or anything, but the darker skinned girls would always call me stuck up, and they would call me war baby and half breed, and I'm not that. I just recently did my 23andMe. I'm Black and I'm proud, and I just did my 23andMe and found out that I had like 23% Irish, and then I dug even deeper, and my great great grandfather was full Irish. I had no clue, so all I knew all my life was that I was Black. And I got accused of just being everything but what I was. And people wouldn't even give me a chance. They didn't want to be my friend because, they just thought they saw me and, I've always been cute, but, but they would just see me and see my skin and just think something of me. And I have never been that person.
Yeah, I can imagine. Any other panel members want to address that?
Yeah, I'll say something really quickly. I guess this is like indirectly, possibly judging, but not on purpose. Sometimes, like at my job specifically, I'll see, first of all, when I see any Black women there, I'm just like, oh my God, yes, I'm so happy to see you. But more importantly, if it's a student or if I know of other students who are Black who I want to get on, I will offer my help. And not that they need my help. Because I think they're not smart or think they can't do it on their own. I just feel like I want to give back. I want to help you and make it easier for you because I know kind of how it is out here. So I feel like I do that, but not because I think something less, but I'm aware of the struggle and how difficult and how they look at us when we come into the workforce or we're trying to apply for the job or you want to get on as a student. And so I'm aware of those struggles, but I do it I'm just trying to help, but not because I think like they're not smart or anything.
Great. And that's good. And Marday, you're a school teacher and you work in a very diverse environment. And what are your students, how do they address you? You've ever had any issues there?
No, I mean, I'm pretty open with my students and honest with them about my background, where I came from. I was actually raised by my mom. She was a single mom. So I was raised by all white family members until my stepdad came in the picture when I was about 7 or 8 years old. So even after that, we only really stayed with our white family. So I definitely think I have a different perspective than most, I would say, mixed people or biracial people, because I wasn't raised by my Black family. So that feeling of like Black pride and all that, I still don't have that. A lot of times when people tell me, oh, you're not Black, I'm like, yeah, I really don't feel like it because I don't, eat greens and I don't do this and I don't do that. Like, I'm not a Black person. And so I kind of feel like that's been stripped away from me. So like when my students talk to me about how they feel and their perspective and their feelings, I'm completely honest with them that sometimes we don't fit in and we strive really, really hard to, but we just have to be the best version of ourselves that we can. And the people that accept that are the people we keep close to us, and the people that don't, we just keep it moving.
Great. You walked us right into our next segment of questions. So thank you very much. And if you want to learn how to eat some collard greens, please come see me, girlfriend. I will help you up with some collard greens. I promise you'll leave liking them. And I say that because I have so many friends who, like you say, you've been raised and you haven't had those. So it's, you can't judge someone because they didn't have collard greens. They just didn't have them. It's just that simple. You let a thing be a thing. But unfortunately, people want to push that on other people that you have to have that. It's like gumbo. Who doesn't eat gumbo at New Year's, right? And you look at people, they've never even heard of gumbo. So you can't tell them that there's something wrong with them because they didn't eat gumbo at New Year's or black eyed peas. It's just one of those things that we do. So thank you for that question. To both sides. What nationality, Josh, let me ask you this. What nationality do you find yourself relating to the most? Yes, this is what I have a question.
Oh, yeah, the black side.
Do you find yourself relating to the most common with? And do you feel guilty for feeling one way or the other?
No, I don't feel guilty. I feel like maybe years ago, I would have felt guilty for like not picking my dad's side or not following his thought process. My dad's white. And so I felt guilty about giving him the business or telling him about issues or concerns or things that Black people were experiencing that I thought he wasn't, woke to. But no,
Are you black or white? Are you black or white?
I'm Black.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm Black. And when I have an opportunity, I will put both races on the application in my latter years. But before, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm only marking Black. I'm only marking Black. That's it. But then I got more comfortable with knowing, okay, you're both. So why don't you represent both? And when I can.
Okay, thanks for sharing. And I have to share this. I grew up with Josh's little girl. I've known her since she was born, and she's radically Black. Tell us a little bit about how you became radically Black in your choosing.
I guess I agreed to do this. So it's so funny because my grandma, she's late grandma, used to tell me this story about when I was little, I'd cling to my dad all on his legs. He's like 6'5", and so I'd always cling to him. And they would say, "Hey, Josh, are you Black?" I said, "No, I'm not. I'm white." I guess they used to tell me these stories, and then this rebellion set in. I moved to the city, and I began experiencing Black culture, like I haven't had before. Even though my mom was Black, she obviously married a white man. So not saying she was less Black for marrying a white man, but there were some of the cultural norms, I guess you would find in a Black family that you didn't find in my family or in my house. And so I had to venture out to find those. I was raised a very strict lifestyle growing up. And so I had to venture out, and I got rebellious, and I started gravitating toward hip hop and, the music and the feel and the vibe and the freedom and the attitude and all of those things that I really felt inside me that I liked. And so long story short, I just started hanging around and gravitating toward the Black crew, the Black people at school, the Black everything. I was just all blacked out. I mean, even some of the bad things, some of the negative aspects of it, I'm like, yes, I'm down. I'm going to taste a little bit of all of this so I can really be there, and claim this Blackness. But it wasn't really a conscious decision where I was like, oh, I'm going to choose. It was just where I was most comfortable. And I feel like some of the maybe anger issues that I had, I find that my Black people were more accepting or relating to those. And so it was easier for me to voice how I felt and kind of be myself and be free and say the things that maybe weren't accepted by my dad. Granted, his family disowned him as soon as when he married my mom. So I didn't even have a white side of my family. All I had was the Black side, kind of opposite of what the other young lady was saying. So now, and the last probably 10 years or so, I'm like, okay, let me tone it back a little bit. Can we come into a little more professional world? So I've been blessed to see, all sides and aspects.
Great.
Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. And Drew, you've been kind of quiet there for a few moments. Share with us, what are your thoughts around when you see people trying to identify with whether they're Black or white? How do you fit into that?
I feel, for me personally, the one question that I used to always avoid answering is, what are you mixed with? Is your mom white? Is your dad white? Is your mom? I would find myself having to explain to everyone, my mom is light skinned. Then I would go in the whole background of what I've learned. Oh yeah, my grandma's this. That. I would take them down. I would always have to show them my whole background, my family's background, and it was a question that I always felt uncomfortable answering. Just as simple as, like, what race are you? Are you mixed? And I don't remember exactly who I was speaking to, but one time I was getting ready to give them the whole history lesson about my mom's side, my dad's this, my mom's this, and I just felt that it was ridiculous that I had to do that. So I just told them I'm Black, I'm African American, and so it took me time to be comfortable with just saying that, and they would ask me even after me just saying, yeah, I'm Black. No, you have to be mixed or something. No, I'm Black. So I feel like whatever you feel is right to identify yourself as. That's your decision. I feel like it shouldn't have to be a justification.
I agree with that. But Drew, what about in your own family? Do people tell you that? Are you black enough?
Um.
Or are you the little yellow boy?
Okay. All right. Well,
I've been guilty of doing that to people, so I just want to know.
I mean, within my own family, at a certain period of time, I think I felt uncomfortable with the comments, and I know like I'm very goofy, and so I know it's all fun and games, laughing, but at some extent, it's like too much. Like, okay, we could slow down, we could stop, but this was a question. But I think me growing up, I've just became comfortable in my own skin. I know who I am. I know where I'm from. And so I didn't let it bother me as much. And I'm still working on it. I mean, I've even playing basketball, been at the free throw line. A person in the stands, an African American man, called me a waste of a mutt. And just hearing stuff like that is just like, wow.
Wow. Wait a minute. Say that he called you a what?
He said I was a waste of a mutt, and the whole crowd just started laughing. And we're playing Texas College. And so I'm like, wow, my own people like see me like this. Yeah, it's tough, but I mean it's something I just live with. So.
Yeah. Well, first I want to apologize for that, on behalf of our people, because as a group of people, we have to learn to support one another. And that hurts. That hurts me to even know that you're throwing a basketball, someone hollers that out at you. And then when you look up and see that it's somebody that looks like you, that doesn't feel very good. JT, how about you? Has someone ever done something like that to you?
Something like what specifically?
Well, he was called out because of a lighter skin and he didn't do something that someone approved of, and you're a darker skin. Has someone ever said to you, and let me tell you a little, JT is a debater. Is that what you are? College debator?
Yeah, I did debate. Right now it's a mock trial.
So he dresses up as an attorney and does all this
under
stuff.
the same program.
So someone ever looked at you and said, you can't do this?
I can't really speak on any specific incident that happened with me. I do remember one time when I was in high school, though, there was some type of issue between this one boy who was white, and another boy who was a biracial black boy. And the white boy, he kept trying to provoke the black kid. And after a while, when the black kid didn't want to fight him, he said, "Oh, why don't you want to fight? You're supposed to fight. You're black," and something like that. And I remember that's something that stuck in my head for a little while. As far as how people see black people and how we're supposed to be violent and supposed to be ready to jump into a fight immediately. But as far as me specifically, I can't really say I have a story that drastic.
What kind of schools did you go to growing up? Were they mixed?
Well, after my family moved from Miami, I was in predominantly white, basically private schools in Kansas City, and then after that in Sacramento. So I felt there were a few black people there, but for the most part, it was mostly a white environment. And I think that more or less shaped how I look at the world. And for a while, I always felt like I was a little bit of an outcast. I never really fit in. And I didn't really have anyone to look up to a lot of the time. So I had to figure out a lot of little things myself.
So are you black or white?
I'm 100% descendant of slaves. So I can't really say I have any other sort of bloodline in me, to be honest.
Definitely black. Thank you. So another.
Before I continue, I just think I have to apologize. I think this might have to be my last segment. My device is running low, and I have to get home pretty soon.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for joining us. Okay, did you have something you want to add or leave with the audience?
That's basically all I had to say. If you had any more questions or anything that you wanted me to speak on, I'd be happy to. But
have you ever been called out of your name?
Have I ever been called out of my name? Well, yes, definitely, plenty of times. Yes, that's definitely something. I feel like, especially now, um, in the internet age, a lot of people just get called whatever on the internet, and you kind of just have to have a tough skin and just deal with it. In real life, I have been called whatever. I've been called the N word by white people. Usually they're on drugs. I remember getting my hair done in Sacramento, and they where I get my hair done, the salon where I get my hair retwisted, there's a window, and the people outside could see inside. I remember a group of white people came up and saw all the black people in the hair salon, and they started dancing like monkeys and like laughing at us, essentially. Like, so yeah, that's just something that I guess you just have to deal with. I don't really know.
Wow.
So
Wow. I mean, you
can
guys are
I
really supporting me. Go ahead.
Can I chime in really quick? I know when we talk about name calling, and then if we look at the name calling within the race, you know, how we call each other names. I know, Drew, can you share what you were called by an African American man when you were doing free throws on one of your games? Do you remember that, Drew? You
You
were doing
missed
free
that.
Yeah,
throws
you
in
missed
Texas or
it.
something? Oh, you
You
told
missed
that.
it.
Okay, I
Yeah.
was out.
Yeah.
You were
But
out.
that's hurtful.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
real hurtful when your own people that you support all your life, you know, call you these names, you know, wannabe and you know, coon and jigaboo and white boy Rick and, you know, all of that stuff. That is very hurtful when you know, there are those that, you know, we know about those that pass. I have an uncle that used to pass. But some of us, those of us that embrace our you know that word, it's really hurtful to hear your own people calling you these names and comparing you, and then it does cause this separation, and then we looking at each other funny because of the way society has put us through, and it's just very painful.
I think one of the things that we have to do as a people is that we have to stop allowing certain languages in our home. The calling of names, the not recognizing. And JT, if you have to leave, thank you. See you tomorrow.
Thank you for
So
having
much
me.
for being on tonight. Yes, thank you. And we're so proud of you. Thank you for making us proud. I think what we have to do is we have to stop calling people names in our own homes and in our communities, so that our children don't grow up thinking it's okay to call each other the N word or to call each other out of our names, and to start appreciating. And like to the young woman earlier about her two little beautiful dark skinned babies, tell them how beautiful they are every day. Let's start appreciating for our children and to one another for, you know, for what we are today. And that's one thing I was going to ask Marday a few moments ago. If you can bring her back with me, I was going to ask you is how do you respond when people ask you what you are?
I say I'm a human.
I love it.
And then when they say, well, no, what are you? I say a woman. And then when they say, well, no, like, what are you mixed with? Colors, I guess. I mean, I don't like putting race on it. And it's hard because if it really gets down to it, I tell them I'm biracial. I'm half black and I'm half white. And that's it. And my whole life I grew up marking the other box because I didn't feel like I fit in with either group. You know, I tell my students a lot too about my family and how I was raised by my white family. But the first probably 5 years of my life, it was just me and my mom because my family disowned me. I'm the first biracial person born into my family. So my mother was told that she ruined their pure bloodline. She was told that I had to call my grandparents by their name. I couldn't call them my grandparents. There was never any photos of me in the house. It was just a really, you know, crazy thing. But, you know, it's just kind of what happens sometimes when you're born into that kind of environment.
So how has that impacted your self-confidence in growing up as a young African-American mixed child?
It made me very determined. I wanted to be better than anybody else in my family. So I was the first one to graduate from college. I was the first one to attend college. I was the first one to graduate from a 4-year university. I'm the first one with a master's degree. I was really, really determined to be more than anybody else in my family was, just to prove to them. And I think my mom and I got the last laugh because everybody after me that was born into my family are all black and white.
So, do they accept you today?
Yes and no. My great grandparents, who are now gone, they never did. But my actual grandparents did. They came around. My mom said after they, were around me a little bit longer, and yeah, it's just a lot of stuff.
A lot of hatred, and again, we apologize for that. No human being should have to live through that. And we all know, sitting on this platform tonight, just being African American, we could all apologize to each other all day long for some of the things that we've had to go through. And we have a question from one of our guests tonight, and the question is another side of the discussion. I am Black, but I am constantly told I sound white because I grew up in an all-white town. Anyone on the panel want to address that? Has that been an issue for you? And I think, Shayla, you and I were talking, I think last week maybe. You were brought up in a nice community, and you were made to live by certain standards. Has that been an issue for you?
Oh yes. And it definitely was kind of a battle, and still kind of is. I grew up in a Christian home, so like hip hop and all stuff was not allowed to be played in the house. Like me and my brother had to sneak it, like sneaking Beyonce like at night. That's just how my parents were, and like in terms of our education, like C's were not allowed. If you had a B, what are you doing this weekend to get that to an A? So we were just held to like a higher standard, and so. Going to school, people are like, "Oh, you're in the AP classes. You're, you get all A's, all this stuff," and they like judge me for it. And then the way I talk, because I love English, I love writing essays and papers. I'm like the one person in this world that does. And so, like, I can switch it on and off. Like, I'm from South Sac, I can turn it on, but it's always an issue for people. And so it kind of separated me within the Black community. And so even when I came here, there was a young man I was on the phone with, not to put all my business out there, but and he was like, "Oh, wow, like you sound different than I thought you would. It must be that master's degree." And I was like, "Are you that intimidated by this degree? like, you come for me like that? Like, wow, let me tell you some things." But
sorry, Mom.
Always been an issue because for some reason, some people separate Blackness with success and Blackness with education. And education and success are not a white trait at all. It's for everybody. So.
Great. Thank you. That sounds wonderful. Anyone else? Josh or Marde? You talk.
Yeah, I think all the time. But I was taught by my mom that there's playground language, and that's when I was young. So I grew up in South Sac as well. So there was playground language and there was classroom language, and that I carried throughout my life. There's my successful criteria language, and then there's I'm hanging with my friends language. So a lot of people say that, "Oh, you sound white." And I said, I didn't know that you could sound a color. I thought you just sounded, you just spoke words.
I love
don't get
That's
it.
great. Yes.
My family always teased me when I worked out at Pebble Beach Golf Resort. They teased me. They'd say, "Oh, we didn't call Yvette. We called Yvette." They call me on the phone. And you're professional at work. When I'm around my family and my girlfriends or whatever, I loosen up a little bit. My neck gets to roll in, because it's who I'm with. But I know how to act, and I know how to talk when when I'm in different arenas. And so they tease. It's always a tease. Who are we talking to today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Josh, did you want to say something before we?
No, I mean, just like
code
switching, it's definitely a thing. But then when I do hear a Black person who speaks white, and that is a thing. I don't know there was a way you could speak white. There is, as far as like my culture or my community is concerned. And I definitely can hear it. I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. Not that it's a judgy, it's just different. I mean, it's just different to hear. So to the person who answered that question, that's cool. My ear does perk out. I'm like, who's that? Like, oh, she's Black. So I definitely hear it. But it's not something that, you judge about or, it's a negative. It's just like super cute to me. Like, oh, cute, But yeah.
I love it.
Well, we have Drew left though, and Drew, being a male, can you really tell the difference when you talk to guys on the phone, when you call a company? Can you tell if Jake from Allstate is black or white? What do you say, Drew?
So you're saying, like, can I tell if like someone's changing?
Yeah,
their
or
voice?
because in a female, you always have that different. You can almost tell the difference. I don't know if it's a female innate thing, so that's why I'm asking you from a male perspective. When you call a place, when you're talking, can you tell that a male is black or white based off of their conversation or their tone?
That's a good. I say for me personally, when I'm on the phone, if it's a business call, I definitely do talk more clear, and I speak slower. If I'm in person with someone, my posture is different, and I also speak clear and slower. So I don't think I could really tell over a phone if I'm talking to someone. That's kind of hard to tell someone's race from a voice. So so yeah. That's
Well, are you speaking in your professional voice right now, or are you speaking in your normal voice, Drew?
I'd say normal. In the middle, because I feel like I don't know. I feel.
Our time is almost up. We have about 10 minutes. I want to throw a wrench out here. You guys ready for this? I need you all to catch it. And I'm so sorry, but I'm going to do this. I want to see everybody's face, Kimmy. I want to see their faces. What is with this thing on whether we like people, whether they're light-skinned or dark-skinned? Where is that coming from? So Shayla's neck is gone. Oh, no, Mama James, don't you go there. Is that within our own culture we do that? I'm just gonna be honest. If you like Yvette's color, that's about my speed. Where is that coming from? Anybody? Shayla, whose hand just went up? Well, Shayla, go ahead, everybody. I want to hear your comments on that.
I think it's like, especially with dating, like it's fine to have a preference, like, but that doesn't mean you disrespect or just totally exclude everyone else that isn't like within your preference, I'd say. Like me dating, I love dark-skinned men. That's just, it is what it is. But every person I have dated has not been dark-skinned, and I don't disrespect men because they're not. And I think that's important. Like you can have your preference of like kind of what you like or whatever, but doesn't mean you become disrespectful to people who are not. Because I have friends who are like, oh, I only date light-skinned girls or I only date dark-skinned girls, and you're like, but what? Like you're missing out. Like she could be trash regardless. Like,
Marjay, how about for you? Did you marry a black man or white man?
So the funny thing, my husband is also biracial. He's half black and half white as well. His mother is white and his father is black. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know where it came from. I'm telling you, when I was in high school, there was this whole light skinned is in thing. And I remember seeing this little meme. I didn't know if memes were a thing back then, but there was a meme of Simba and Mufasa from Lion King. And they were looking out over like to where Scar lived. And he goes, Dad, what's that? And he said, oh no, that's where the dark skins live. We don't go there. Like there was literally memes like that on the internet. So it literally comes from social media, and it comes from our own, people in our own color. And it's really sad that, a lot of times, I know that Yvette spoke on it too, but I will just over and over that we don't fit in anywhere because the world perceives me as black. But a lot of times, if I'm in a setting with black women, they don't perceive me as black because I'm light skinned. And it's like this huge divide that I don't know what will finally stop until we all just see each other as black people or African-American people, whether we're mixed or we're, or we're not. It doesn't matter. If the world perceives us as black, I feel like we're black.
Okay. So maybe I missed it earlier. Are you black or white?
I'm other.
Oh, thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, I claim other because when I was born, there was no biracial button. So my mom marked other. So I've always claimed other. Now there's 2 or more races. So both of my babies are marked 2 or more races.
Oh, okay, great. Drew, color preference, where's this coming from?
It's crazy. In high school, definitely heard about light skin is in, dark skin is in. It's still around now. I think it's ridiculous that our skin tone is a trend and that we've allowed it to not only be a cultural norm, but a social norm so that other races feel comfortable enough to say that light skin is in, dark skin is in. Like I'm not a fan of it, and it's because of what social media has put out, what's been on the television. It's yeah, I'm not a fan. Not a fan.
Great, thank you. Josh?
I think historically, just like I think the background, the history of this whole lesson, when you first started talking about it, I feel like that's where it came from originally. But I think that you tell a lie enough times and everyone will start buying into it. And so I think definitely it's in our culture. I hear it more within my culture, like, oh, red bone, oh, you're light skin. Whereas other nationalities, maybe they're not bold enough to say it, but they don't say it. And then it's like, oh, Jocelyn, why don't you go ask the waiter for this or that? Or why don't you go in the store and ask for this or that? Because they'll probably, give it to you or say yes. I'm just like, okay, it doesn't bother me anymore. It's kind of like, okay, whatever I can do to help the team out, like I'm down to do it. I'll go in as the scapegoat, whatever. But yeah, I definitely think that it's something that we have bought into as a group, as a culture. So we start amongst ourselves thinking like, oh, this is there and that. But I think with everything that's going on socially right now, that these kind of issues will hopefully subside or start to subside as we start to unify as people. And we identify, hey, regardless of what color you are, what shade you are, you're still going to experience some sense of discrimination or racism, or something negative in association with your, as light skin as I am, doesn't matter. When my hair was out natural and my nose, I've had white people tell me, I knew you were black because your nose. I'm like, really? I think my nose is pretty slim, but they will pick up on it. Like JT before he left, you can cut your hair, you can shave your head, you can do all of these different things to your appearance, but who you are and the roots that we have in us regardless are gonna come out. Yeah. So just embrace it.
Embrace it. I know. I thank all of you for your conversation tonight. So we're going to wrap it up with I want you to leave one tip to your fellow peers, to your community, and to your race of people. What is that one lasting comment that you would like them to know about the shades of color and the impact that they have to bring us a better world? Shayla.
I think it's just important everyone knows that they're beautiful no matter what tone, shade, race, culture that you're from. You're beautiful and you deserve the absolute best.
Thank you. Marday.
I totally agree. I would just say that no matter what color you are, no matter where you come from, we're all one people and we should all be treated as such.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Drew.
I would say that I think it's important that we sit ourselves down and definitely address what we feel that we love about ourselves. And once we find what we love about ourselves, and we find a love for ourselves and our color, and we'll be able to be more comfortable in our color, in our skin, and that'll help with not allowing outsiders and outside messages to get to us. It's easy.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And Jocelyn?
Yeah, I think someone may have said, like, be the best version of you that you could be. And then encourage those around you to also, be the best that they can be, regardless of, skin color. If we love ourselves and we encourage those around us, hopefully it'll all trickle down.
Great. Thank you. Kimmy, what's your closing statement?
My closing thoughts would be, like I told someone this weekend, I really want everyone to know that to thine own self be true. So I think everyone has really hit on it. You're beautiful, you're lovely, address what you love about yourself, be the best version of you, and be true to that, to who you are. What I really loved the most tonight was two things, was I'm other. Like that really just hit home for me, because none of us really could check, really all of us, we really should be checking all the boxes truly when you look at our 23andMe and our blood reports that come back as I'm other. And so what? Love me, take me as I am or not. I love that.
Great, thank you. And Miss Bugs, this is near and dear to your heart. What are your closing thoughts?
Yes, I just want to say let's not continue to let society dictate to us how we embrace the diversity within our culture, within our race. Let's sit down and have some conversations, and let's have some healing, and let's cry and get it out, and let's come together and unify.
Great, thank you. And I think for me, I agree with what everyone has said. And as we come back to the King's table, we say to everyone, God has made us all just the way we are. And we are uniquely created. We are all differently designed, different hues and shades of colors. But more than anything, we are humans. And we should love one another unconditionally, non-judging. Just let's learn to love one another. And no matter where you go, no matter what you're doing, where you find yourself at today, tomorrow, just show up 100% and say, world, here I am. I'm going to be the best that I can be, because I want to be a part of saving a nation. So to our guests tonight, we say thank you for joining us. We're going to ask you all to stay on, and we want to invite everybody back next week. We have a wonderful show. We know that it is the fourth quarter. We're getting ready to close out the year, and we want to do it well. So to each one of our guests, stay tuned for just a few moments. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us tonight at the King's Table. We all say thank you. And we want to say thank you to our many guests that we had on this evening. We want to also invite you back next week to Finishing Strong. It's the end of the year. We've got to do it, and do it with a bang. Follow me every Monday morning on Monday Morning Jumpstart at 7 a.m. Follow me on my podcast at Spotify, Apple, and many other platforms. The King's Table _KJ. You can also pick up my book, Finally, No More Excuses. This is brought to you by Esther Nation Ministries, saving a nation, one woman at a time. So we say goodnight to everyone. We see you next Monday morning at 7 a.m. for Monday Morning Jumpstart. To all of our guests, you have made me so proud tonight. You are amazing, young, smart, educated people. And I'm happy to say I think the world is in good hands. So continue to do the great things that you do. And please stay on for just a few more moments.